I studied in grade school by a lamp. You know, a Aladdin lamp was really a good light. An electric light probably was about a 40-watt bulb. Man, we thought we was really seeing something.
Southeastern Arizona, Cochise County. Its rural, modern-day roots lie in mining, ranching, and farming.
The cottontail, see them.
And that's where Noel Curry was born, on a farm near Cochise. It was a hard life until one day the poles went into the ground, the lines were strung, the oil lamp was put away and replaced by something wondrous.
Well, our electricity is very, very important to rural America.
The year was 1961, and an idea born several years earlier, the idea that 4 rural electric co-ops could come together and form their own generation and transmission facility, was becoming reality. Duncan Valley Electric Cooperative, Graham County Electric Cooperative, Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Cooperative, and Trico Electric Cooperative had no way to meet the growing demand of their rural Arizona members, and Arizona Electric Power Cooperative was born.
The 4 co-ops, when we started, had individual diesel plants which were inadequate there.
Howard Bethel started at Sulphur Springs Valley Electric Co-op in 1961. 10 years later, he would be its manager. He remembers the exhilaration of those early days.
There's pretty much excitement about it, just like it would be in this day and age. If a project of that size coming in, that meant more tax base, that meant more jobs.
The first decade relied on natural gas turbines. A combined cycle unit was built, followed by gas turbines 2 and 3. But more generation was needed, and the debate turned to coal as the first energy crisis hit the country and gas lines began forming.
Nationwide, that's when the gas lines started developing that time. And so basically the message the board of directors and APCO got from Washington said, well, you have to go to coal here because natural gas is going to be in short supply.
The principal driver for at least one of the coal units was the fact that we were in a gas moratorium. The other one was the Phelps Dodge Corporation was needing more power, and Anaconda.
Bob Hewlett started at APCO as corporate counsel. He says one of the key challenges in the 1970s and 80s was the same as now, trying to anticipate demand, and much of the demand was supposed to come from the mines.
The coal units came online, and then just as soon as the coal units came online, we decided we needed to bring them into rate base, and we had a very large, kind of a threshold rate case.
It was a challenging but exciting time. Mojave Electric Cooperative had joined as a Class A member in 1973, Anza Electric Cooperative in 1979. The future looked rosy, but the positive net margins that had marked the mid-1970s began to disappear. And as the economy began to sputter, news reports began speculating about the effect falling copper prices would have on production.
They talked about a risk being that the mines might get into trouble. And when that was written, that would be about the last thing. I kind of laughed to myself when I read that. But a short time later, bingo, bongo, bongo, here we are.
Phelps Dodge and the power it had pledged to take became a major issue.
Because they were supplanting the load that we had with those new rates I was talking about, using their gas units. So we had to fiddle around with them and structure new deals to encourage their use of our product, which is ironic because their demand on our product was what caused us to build the units in the first place.
The Phelps-Dodge load was critical, and APCO went back to the bargaining table to work something out with the mine.
That was achieved through a series of supplemental contracts and special deals, all of which are very beneficial to APCO.
There's a lot of activity that goes on, engineering activity, finance activity, interfacing with consultants and the like.
Dirk Minson joined APCO in 1982 as plans were being made to add generation. And even then, it was hard to imagine the size of the economic tsunami looming on the horizon.
APCO was going through a fairly good growth spurt at that time, preparing for that build-out, which ultimately never occurred. But initially, it was a very exciting time. And then the economy turned, and then we went through a series of layoffs, losses for a number of years. Mines shut down.
The timing couldn't have been worse for a power company that had 2 new coal-fired units and the resulting debt service, but no one to take all that power.
It turned south, and it turned south pretty quick.
The mid-'80s probably marked one of the toughest times in APCO's history. The Animax mine south of Tucson had closed down, and in December of 1986, Steam 2 was mothballed. All anybody could do was wait for the economy to recover and the demand for power to return. But under new leadership, APCO employees would chart a new course and lay the groundwork to make APCO one of the most reliable, efficient, and viable G&T cooperatives in the country.
Certainly I understood that APCO had been through some trying financial times, but I listened to a lot of people as to what their assessments were, recognized that there was a problem with employee morale, there was a problem with communications among our member distribution cooperatives and boards, there was concern about rates increases and the rates not being stabilized.
And as that economic tsunami rolled over APCO and the rest of the nation, the negative equity approached $50 million. Steps were immediately taken to turn things around. It was a process that would consume the next decade.
One corner we turned, it came in February of 1988. We were on RUS's troubled borrowers list, which meant that I reported to RUS on a weekly basis as to how the operations were going. We were notified in July of 1988 that they were removing us from that list, that they were satisfied that we were moving in the correct direction.
Another positive move that helped APCO turn the corner was a long-term contract with Salt River Project to provide 100 megawatts of power. With strategic planning and a shared vision, managers focused on containing costs and improving efficiencies. There was a constant effort to stabilize fuel costs. New projects were put on hold, and in 1994, APCO posted positive margins and set a goal to post positive equity by the year 2000.
And we accomplished that goal, all at the same time without increasing any rates and returning several $1 million back to our members in improved fuel cost savings, a change in our rate which allowed for a more fair billing system, which resulted in a reduction in rates.
As the year 2000 approached, so did the specter of deregulation. No sooner had APCO eliminated its negative equity than it had to refocus its attention on what would eventually lead to a restructuring. And 2 new co-ops, Southwest Transmission Cooperative and Sierra Southwest Cooperative Services, were born.
Mainly associated with the drive to retail competition, which basically started out and failed in California. And so often as is the case, a lot of stuff which starts on the West Coast kind of migrates eastward, and Arizona got pulled into that retail competition mode, and that didn't necessarily drive the restructuring itself, but obviously it influenced the process.
It was then also that some member cooperatives pursued the option of becoming partial requirements members. A study showed demand would equal capacity in the year 2000.
So we looked at what each member's projections were of that total, load to be there in 2000, and that determined their allocated capacity percentage. In other words, what they were obligated to pay for towards our existing facilities from then on. They were free then if they became partial requirements, but they could then go out and purchase their additional requirements from anyone in the market.
Much of the next decade would be spent trying to anticipate demand, members' needs, and an economy that was slowing once again, while hammering out equitable contracts with the partial and the all requirements members under the new business model of 3 cooperatives. As 2010 came to a close, the goal was achieved.
Getting all of that done was something of remarkable. I think getting it done was pretty remarkable.
Where are we now? We're financially stable,
We are.
a lot of equity.
We have almost 30% equity, which is about $95 million. As I've often reminded the board of directors, that doesn't necessarily mean you have cash in the cigar box, but we are in much better financial condition than what we were in the mid-'80s. I think it has a lot to do with how we have controlled cost.
Every decade has brought new challenges that have been met, and the only certainty as APCO celebrates its 50th anniversary and refocuses on service to its members is that there will continue to be challenges.
The big challenge is regulation. It's regulation that may sound good to folks maybe on the Eastern Seaboard or in, that have different kinds of lifestyles, but to people that are in rural Arizona with fixed incomes, you're looking at some very radical changes for the provision of power.
The people of APCO have overcome every challenge put before them and will continue to do so. And maybe the best way to do that is to focus on a few simple ideas. That what we do is a good thing and vital to the rural Americans we serve.
It means that, hey, we're going to have lights tonight.